Welcome to Book and Lounge. I'm your host, Jacqueline. In this episode, we're talking about greed, Ghanaian politics post-independence, and the life of a very charismatic and charming conman who managed to swindle the world. We discuss the complex layers of his character, examining how he blurred the lines between truth and deception, and the moral implications of his actions. Reflect on the societal factors that enabled his schemes, from the idealistic investors who believed in his promises to the greedy opportunists who sought to profit from his lies. Let's hear what Kay, Annette, Katrina, and Taiwo had to say.
Where do I start? I'll start with you, Taiwo.
Start with the title.
What is the title? I don't have the book in front of me. Anansi's Gold, the man who swindled the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what's the author's name again? I think Annette, you should pronounce this because I can't pronounce it properly.
So I knew this was coming, and I asked my mother, and she was not familiar. So I'd rather. I'll only end up doing it in a Ghanaian accent, which doesn't make it any better that it's accurate.
A Ghanaian
I'll just
accent.
say Yepoka Yeebo. That's what.
Okay. It's better than how I would pronounce it, so we're good. So Taiwo, then, do you want to give us a brief recap of what the book is about? Anansi's Gold, the man who swindled the world. Yes, I do.
It's about a very interesting character who had a great knack for reinventing himself and could always extricate, if that's the right word. He could always get himself out of any kind of trouble. And I had difficulty wondering whether he believed his own lies or because maybe he told so many lies, or let's just say so many untruths, that he forgot the difference between truth and falsehood, so that the two merged into one. So he's like the boy that cried wolf. When the wolf then appeared, he forgot what a wolf looked like. He lost touch with reality in some ways, and also morality as well. But he was very charming, which was a big plus sign, a big plus in terms of his character flaws. He's very, very charming, very generous, but many people who are, he's buying his way into, his favors, He's buying his way into, he knew what money was for. Money is power. And he knew that money...
But that's not being generous, though, is it?
Well, he didn't have to give, but he gave.
But he gave to... We're actually really getting deep into the book now.
He gave with a motive. He gave with a motive, I agree. But
that's not being generous.
He was generous to the right people.
Yes.
Generosity as not as true altruism, but as a tool to get what he wanted. He knew who he had to flatter.
Yes. So there are different kinds of generosity. So yes, I agree with Kate.
No, I think he was buying his way rather than being generous. That's how I would describe it.
Generosity also has to come from a good place. That's what I think marries in with the word and the term and the verb, everything to do generosity. If it's not coming from a good place, you're not being generous. That's what I think. I agree with what you said, Jackie.
It was definitely performative.
Yes.
But like the uncle who walks into the party and starts handing out money to the kids. Here you go. That it was that sort of it was a performance.
So like the Sakawa boys, living large.
Who are the Sakawa boys?
Sakawa boys. I can see Annette smiling. She knows all about them. They're fraudsters, aren't they? Ghanaian
Are they Ghanaian fraudsters?
Yeah, like the 419ers in Nigeria.
Okay, actually, now I think about it, they were mentioned in Love Janessa. Did you listen to it?
I did. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, very funny.
Yeah.
It's sad in some parts.
We're getting away from the book already. Anyhow, Taiwo, you said, it's about this man who is overly charismatic, convinces people. to do him a lot of favors. But actually, there's an ulterior motive, isn't there, which you haven't talked about. The title is The Man Who Swindled the World.
Yes.
So he's basically convinced a lot of people that he has access to the huge amount of money, and all they need to do is pay him some money to enable him to get that money out. It just sounds so ridiculous. And once he's got the money out, then they're going to get 10, 20-fold what they paid in.
Yes.
But really and truly, there is no money. He's just a fraudster, and he's trying to defraud people.
When you say really and truly, there wasn't any money, but wasn't
there? Is no money. Come on, we would have found it by now. And by the way, this is a true story, right?
Have you ever read The Count of Monte Cristo?
Sorry?
Have you ever read The Count of Monte Cristo?
I haven't.
Really?
How is it? What's the relevance?
The hidden treasure. The hidden treasure. It's real.
Isn't Count of Monte Cristo fiction?
No, it's based on reality. It's written by a black man.
It?
It's got lots of alternative facts.
Okay, I would say The Man Who Swindled the World also has got a lot of alternative facts.
Yes.
If that's what we're calling lies nowadays, then yes, it's got a lot of alternative facts.
But the thing is that you're overlooking the fact that he was selling people a dream which they wanted to believe in. So he was only kind of partway swindling them because they were partway swindling themselves. He was selling them their own greed.
Thank you very much.
I agree. They were really rich.
At what point do people like? It's a funny narrative, or it's a clever narrative where I'm rooting for the bad guy and I don't care about the people that he's swindling. It's terrible. And can I say this about the Amman Ghana Trust Fund? I'd heard this and believed it to be true. I'd heard the rumor, and I don't mean heard the rumor because I'm sitting around in like quiet corridors, but just thinking back to like previous work experience, I'd heard that there was a story that Nkrumah had swindled lots of money.
Really?
And as I was yes, like it almost as a, oh yeah, didn't people say that he swindled lots of money away, or he'd swindled gold away, or he took it out of the country? And part of why I think this guy is so successful is because it just plays on so many stereotypes and untruths, which I'm sure we'll get into. But by the end, I wanted him to get out one more time.
Did you?
I really did. I really did.
But like Mission Impossible, Final Reckoning. Just one more time. Trust me. This final time.
One more time. Just meet me in Switzerland.
Wherever it was he needed to get to, I wanted him to get there. I'm struggling to feel sorry for these institutions or these people. And there's a line in the book where it's like, at no point did it occur to people that if this money did exist, it belonged to the people of Ghana. It was just, everybody was like, oh, okay, there's this wealth. Yeah, sure, invest and I'll get loads of it back.
Yeah.
You know?
They're quite happy to rape the country again and again and again.
Take the money, run with it, make money of it. Not at one point did anybody stop and think, surely this money should go back. If it's swindled out, it should be given back. So
that kind of leads me to my question I wanted to ask. But he had attracted both the idealistic and the greedy. What category of people would you say fell within idealistic, and also which type of people fell within the greed? And what does that say about social forces that enabled the scam? I'll just say why I asked that question. So at the beginning you had, this is when he's in the US. Was it Pennsylvania or Philadelphia? I can't remember now. Anyway, when he's in the US, he's freed from prison by this guy who was a preacher and had been alienated from the church. And he then encouraged people that he knew to invest in a trust. And these were people who were black nationalists, and they were all about black power and going back to Africa and improving Africa. So those were initially the kind of people that were investing in the trust, or at least that were convinced about the idea of the trust. And I think that at least some of them had good intentions of helping Ghana, this first independent African country, to establish itself and to grow. And so I think they partly bought the story because of that. Yes, Taiwo.
I wanted to say that they may well have had good intentions, but their business acumen was seriously suspect. The fact that, if you want to invest in Ghana, the best way to invest is through his trust is questionable.
But these people did not know anything about Africa, if you think about it. They really didn't.
But come on, if you want to invest as a good business person in anything, there's an idea of due diligence, isn't there? If you're putting your hand in your own pocket, unless it's someone else's money that you're dabbling around with, basically gambling, as lots of stockbrokers do in the city, that's fine. All you're going to lose is your job, maybe your liberty, who knows. But if you're using your own money, then I would have thought, the onus on you for due diligence. You have to find out. And also there's that golden rule, isn't there? Don't dabble in things that you don't understand. So if you don't understand crypto, don't get involved too heavily.
You're being too sensible, Taiwo. way too sensible.
Just being logical. That's
fine,
all.
Logical. You're being too logical. I think that most people, even people now who dabble in crypto, half of them don't have a clue what they're dabbling into. People who buy shares, half of them do not do any research into the companies that they're buying. I think you're being way too logical. I think people, when they hear there's an opportunity, and when it comes to something like Africa, I don't forget this was at a time when most countries were probably still not independent. It was probably still quite difficult to get information out of Africa, and also to travel to Africa. So this due diligence that they're supposed to be doing would have been very difficult for them. And then on top of that, you have this guy who's very much of a charmer, who's very good at explaining things and convincing people, telling them that this thing actually exists. And so for them, as far as they're concerned, this guy is credible.
And in the early stages, it's all happening in real time, right? So what is it, like independence 57? And then like in the years afterwards, like Nkrumah's going on these trips, he's making these speeches. So there's almost a sense of it feels real because it's closer to the time that it happened. It's not far away yet. And I think he was friends with those people as well. Like in the early Dr. Blamieser, like the first people he's taken in are people he's got some relationship with, and he knows them a bit.
Was it the people that he met in the prison? Those were the ones he kind of, the first wave was those are the ones that he kind of got on his.
Was he really their friends, or was he just getting a further education by being in prison with them, learning from them, like a sponge, just soaking up?
That's what you do when you go to prison. It's rehabilitation, Taiwo. You're meant to be learning, networking. Wrong. You didn't waste time.
Rehabilitation. So where was the punishment element?
He was incarcerated.
They said there was no mattress. Incarcerated. It was in a concrete floor. I don't know if there was toilet. That's the punishment. The environment is the punishment. He made the most out of it. That's what you should be doing.
So from prison, then he convinces all these people to invest, but then he kind of moves, and the type of people that are encouraged to invest kind of change. So they're more business people, like Ellis, and then later on the likes of Rigby, and then all the others who then came on board. They tended to be more people who already had wealth and were looking to increase their wealth. And I think for me, that's where the greed now came in.
Wasn't Rigby some kind of lackey that he trained? Like he was just a low-level operator who he found, and he kind of dazzled with his suits and his lifestyle.
But he was also motivated by what he would get out of it, right?
Yeah, like they all were. And the thing that took me aback is how many people he was able to take in. It was almost laughable by the end, which I had to start rooting for him, because if he could reel in that many people, keep going, and it just, even when all like things come to a head and things come out, he's still managing to reel people in. And I like
was
with the book
embarrassed.
what embarrassed for him or for them.
I was embarrassed with it. Like, I just, because like he was saying, it's just like, how can you not see? I was just thinking, all these Ghanaians, he was, I was like, I was embarrassed for my own people that especially when people have heard about his history and you're still going, oh yeah, like it's just embarrassing. Yeah. And the thing is, I don't think anything's improved, so I'm still embarrassed.
Wasn't there an element of hope? Because the country was in a bit of dire straits at that point. And so wasn't there an element of hope? Actually, there could be this money and it could get us out of this situation. And then that's what made Ghanaians believe in him.
Did they all believe in him? There were definitely some. There was the guy with the factory who, okay, I felt sorry for him. He'd bet all his money on this thing.
Brewery guy.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
He put all his money on it existing, and he eventually lost everything. But I kind of got the picture that was painted, like of post Nkrumah's part, or he's been deposed in his past. Is that everybody's out for themselves?
Yeah.
Like, and you've got a few people who are trying to resist the lie, Shirley Temple and various other individuals for their own reasons as well. But at that point, yeah. And to me, what I really enjoyed about the book is that it starts out giving you this history, like the history of Nkrumah, and then it talks about like what's going on post-independence. And there's almost like this moment where the lies take over. It's this idea, it's not the lies that do the damage. It's the fact that it makes everybody cynical. And that's what does the damage, that nobody believes anymore.
When you say nobody believes anymore, do you mean nobody believes in the government and policies and so on?
It's like one too many lies. It's, like like you said, people had hope, like it can get better. We've got our independence, hard fought for, now it's here. And then it's lie after lie after lie, and eventually people stop believing in the government's ability to do its job. But even like towards the end, like John Jerry Rawlings, and there's a moment where she said he might have been a crook, but he was our crook, and it wasn't for them to punish him. Brilliant. People knew, and they were using him.
Yeah.
Well, I think the politicians were definitely using him, and they issued him that diplomatic visa when it benefited them. But what really surprised me is that, mind you, they didn't come across as very clever people either. Politicians, this is. They, in a sense, were using him just as much he was using them. Because they were thinking that, well, if this gold really does exist, if he brings it back, we can take it off him. But at the same time, he was using them to basically live this fancy diplomatic lifestyle.
Yeah. My dad is not an Nkrumah fan at all. He really isn't. But he says the one good thing about him is that he had a very strong moral compass, and it's inconceivable that he would have siphoned money away or gold or whatever it is. And he says that everyone around him would have known that is just not true because we read, like you said, they started from the beginning and everyone around him was just crooked, but he wasn't. And he just says it's just not possible. And they all knew it wasn't possible. So I don't know I feel like it can't have been hope. I don't know what it was that was still like, that still allowed them to just, I mean, like you said, they're both using each other, but I don't get why they carried on going along with it because they all knew that it just wasn't true.
What about the people outside though?
Oh well.
When you say it wasn't true, like in Ghana, like they knew it wasn't. They must have known it wasn't true. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, in Ghana they knew it wasn't true. I don't know about people. Maybe the people outside were, depending on if they knew Nkrumah, if they followed Ghanaian politics, maybe. If not, but I think for them it's largely just greed, basically, for anyone outside. And there was a bit in there when she said that there was a lot of talk around there was money to be made in Ghana because they've heard that. Yeah. So I think you don't really need to do much research, Tyra. If you heard there's money to be made somewhere, you'll just put any money into anything. You probably think you'll get something back. You don't care how. If it's not done in a legal way, it doesn't matter because they're not thinking about the citizens. So.
And Tyra, you wanted to say something?
No, I was just saying about a recent edition of In Our Time on Radio 4. They were talking about this issue of, no, sorry, not In Our Time. It was Start of the Week. Common knowledge. and what it means, and how the issue of common knowledge as a currency has become devalued. And they're talking about this, that old emperor's new clothes, and everyone knew that the emperor was naked, but no one was going to say that the emperor was naked, because there's common knowledge that we all know that the emperor is naked, but because of his status and the fact that it's common knowledge that he's naked, we don't have to acknowledge that fact until the little boy who isn't in on the common knowledge says, oh, he's naked. And that's what kind of turns the tide. And so that whole issue, I'm not explaining it very well, but that principle or that approach of common knowledge is what allowed him to continue to fuel this lie that many people knew that really it's not true, but because so many people are saying Nkrumah stole so much gold and kept it for us. So it's that playing slightly with the lie or the truth, because you know that, not that Nkrumah is incorruptible, but as Kay was saying, as Annette was saying, he had a very strong moral compass. He's not likely to do that. A little grain of truth, but a lot of lie.
But isn't like more than a lie? It's clearly being stoked by other like nefarious actors. So again, what I really liked, what the author does with this book is that she shows you that, don't think for a second like the Brits, in 1957 just stepped back. There were lots of these other international players who were trying to stir the pot. So backing the wrong people, or they were put, alternative facts, as you mentioned, Taiwo, they were putting them out there. I listened to it and I can't, maybe I'm being naive or I'm being unfair, but it's did Ghana even stand a chance? With so many people were piling to kind of undermine the chance for this country to we've got independence, now we're going to stand on our own 2 feet and grow. There were so many vested interests, like internally and externally. It just felt like every attempt to kind of move forward was being kicked back.
And I think at that point, Ghana did not need a play measure to now start going around saying that there's this gold here somewhere. Please come and help me to retrieve it.
I just wanted to say also, beyond the issue of bleeding the country dry, the fact is when the colonial master leaves, he doesn't leave empty-handed. And that was quite shocking to me, because I naively thought that when the colonial master leaves, they just pull out. But not only have they done nothing with the country apart from take out all the resources, but they actually take loads and loads of gold to prop up their own economy and say, we're going to give it back to you, we're going to give it back to you. But they never do, because obviously 9/10 of the law is possession, isn't it? So not only do you not build any infrastructure or anything with which a new nation like Ghana can actually begin, you handicap them so that they're even less than zero, they're in negative. You take the gold away, use it to prop up your own economy, and you refuse to give it back.
It could have been worse, Taiwo. Didn't the French destroy all the factories and everything that they built in the colonies that they were responsible for when they left?
Yeah, like a scorched earth.
Yeah. Portuguese did. The Portuguese smashed up what they couldn't take with them. Not that I think there was ever much anyway, but they
so
made sure they didn't leave anything.
Had a lot of journalists in his pocket. They always came out and published stories that he wanted to be in the media. He knew how to play the media really, really well. What responsibility do journalists have when investigating stories like this? Should they have investigated further the claims that Blameza was making and held him to account, rather than just going with what he said in his press conferences and siding with him wherever he called the press conference? And what in fact, actually even better still, what duty do they have? Do they have any ethical or moral duties to investigate and report?
A $64,000 question, Jackie. I feel like that's a question that applies today. Like, what responsibility do they have? They would say, wouldn't they? They have a responsibility to their readers or their owners to sell papers.
But I think journalists would try to convince you that they have a responsibility and that they take it seriously. It doesn't mean they do, but they would claim
that
that.
they're reporting the
And perhaps they
truth
think they do.
and being ethical.
Well, they would claim they'd investigated it. I mean, the truth is
Should they
only
be
what you
more
can find
accountable for
out,
what
isn't
they
it?
put out in the media? Because as Casey, at the moment, it's all about selling. It's not even selling newspapers anymore. It's all about clicks nowadays. It's how many people you can get to click on an article, and then the adverts money that they generate from there. That for me is what journalism has become. Even platforms like the BBC, I don't believe that they're that independent or even as rigorous anymore in their investigation. They don't challenge as they should. But then is that the moral duty of journalists? I guess that was the question I was getting at. Should we hold them to a higher standard because they're journalists and responsible for putting this information out there to the general public?
When you say higher standard of what? Because I would have thought that people that go to journalism school, they're taught about ethics and a journalistic code in the same way that people in medicine and healthcare are taught about, do no harm and ethics and all the rest. But it all in the real world.
And that's what I'm talking about.
But in the real world, when you're applying your ethics, it all becomes very grey. It's not black and white. And at the same time, there's an issue of power, isn't there? You might want to, you might submit information of the truth that you found out. But that doesn't mean it's going to be published, whether online or in print media, because, you only have so much power as a journalist. There's an editor, and above the editor, there's the owner of the paper, if it's Robert Murdoch or whoever. Pardon?
Rupert.
Oh, Rupert, yeah. Rupert the Bear, yeah. So, your ethics and your limited influence only goes so far.
And if you're an investigative journalist who's got a story, they've got to get somebody to accept that story. So an individual journalist may have, investigated and tried to be ethical, but then according to where you live, it could also put you in danger yourself. I mean, after all, look at Gaza and the number of journalists who've been killed while they're there, which of course was just by coincidence, as we know. But if you have a story that it threatens people, you possibly at risk yourself.
One of my friends, she's a documentary maker, journalist. She made a documentary about India and the current president, and now she can't travel to India. And just exactly what you said. And so she's taken the decision knowing that she will be she may be in danger, and she may not be able to travel to India as a result of making the documentary. But she still went ahead and made the documentary. So I guess what we're saying is it depends on you as the person, what risks you want to take.
Can I ask a question about that person? Are they a British passport holder?
Yeah.
Okay.
Indian origin.
I'm not,
but also have a British passport.
Yeah, I'm not obviously I don't know about that case, but I also think some people have the luxury or the privilege, if that's the right term, to make these choices and pursue it.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you look at, I'm trying to think I can't think, like investigative journalism here in this country, like shows on Channel 4 like Unreported World, and they go into these different places and they're super interesting. I think what they do is amazing, and I think the standard is great, and I also think they have the luxury to report in that way, because if shit hits the fan, they've got the passport to get them out. If you're in that country, you've probably got to ask yourselves a different set of questions. It's not just about your integrity as a reporter. It might very well be about the safety of not just yourself, but your family. So there are lots of other things you have to think about. And it's right that more people, or there are journalists who were perhaps neglectful in the way they were telling this story, or they weren't diving as deep as they could have done. But it's almost like lots of people were turning a blind eye, and they were just one of many.
And also, I guess they were getting the headlines, and it was in their interest to continue cozying up to him and getting the story. But then on top of that, then you also had whistleblowers in other countries who had picked up that he was a con man, and he was trying to extract money out of people. And it was reported several times, not only to the government, but to the embassy in various countries. But for some reason, the people doing the reporting were never really believed, and it never really got anywhere. It was as if mud could not stick with this guy. And that just really puzzled me as to why, despite all this information being out there, being imprisoned, I don't know how many times, and then also embassies issuing out warnings that don't trust this guy. A lot of people still gave him money, still believed in him. Well, why was he so effective, and what is it that made people believe him despite all these warnings?
I wonder how much of this information would have been accessible at the time, because it would have relied on
For who? For the
about
investors?
Him, his past. If he comes and presents himself and says one thing to you, like, it may not have been easy to access the fact that he had swindled, hotels and what so have you. And when she's describing how he did it, part of me is thinking, damn, I should try that. It just feels. I think Taiwo said it's like there's a grain of truth in everything. I'm with the embassy, and he's got some kind of real slither of a tangential link to them. Charge it to them. And it takes a while before somebody notices it. And in that time, he's been able to fly to a different city and tell them a story. So I think partly there are practical reasons why it wasn't picked up.
Mm-hmm.
But also I think there's an element of the psychology of the man. Because, Kay, when you're saying about you should try it, I don't think it would work, because you don't have the way he thinks within you, whereby you don't even need to think it, you just do it. So it's almost an unconscious, when you need to pivot, you pivot without even thinking, I need to drop plan A and move to plan B. You're not even thinking about it. You're already moving to plan B. Before you've thought plan B, you're halfway down the road of plan B. It's second nature to you, because the difference between the lie and the truth is indistinguishable. It's like Animal Farm, isn't it? The pigs and the human beings, they're one and the same thing by the end. And that's how he is. He doesn't think, he just does. So the whole idea of having to be bold and to put on a front and all the rest, I think eventually it's who he is. He's no longer thinking. It's just like a river flowing.
I felt like he had I don't know what. I think he needs to be diagnosed with something. I just don't know what. Because I was being deadly sick. Everyone's like, even my dad laughed. I was like, no, there's something wrong with him. I don't know what the diagnosis is, but he can't distinguish between the lie and what's not. Everything is a lie, but he believes the lie. I honestly don't think he could now remember what's truth and what's not. I even felt like he believed there was money there in Switzerland, whatever. I think there was a problem with him, because the way he's carrying on is too much effort. But I don't have the energy to be lying and going into getting a chauffeur and wearing a fur. It's hard work. Like I just think there was a problem there, which obviously somehow worked in his favor a bit. But
well, I didn't think that
he's not right.
Believed that the money was there. I thought that he knew it was a lie, and he knew he was conning people. But he'd gotten so used to the lifestyle. Because if you think about it, he'd been conning people since he was in school, right? He'd been going around. He realized that he had this ability to convince people about his. Sorry?
Is that a gift?
Well, it is. It is actually being able to persuade people and getting people to see things from your perspective. That is a gift. That is a great gift, because then you can sell sand to people who live in a desert.
No.
So I think he realized very early on that he had this gift, the ability to get people on his side, and then he realized that actually if he could do that, then he can get whatever he wants from people. And then he got used to having this kind of lifestyle, so he had to continue the lie. But I feel that he knew it was a lie. There's no way he could have convinced himself that there was a trust when he'd made up the story. I don't think so.
I thought towards the end it was less about the lie was actually a matter of life and death. Because when you go into like the 80s in Ghana and like you've got the coups and people are dying and are you on the right side of government, it was imperative that he kept the lie going to be on, to stay on the right side and stay alive. That's at the point where he felt like it became bigger than swindling some poor widow in Philadelphia. This is actually integral now to his survival as well as his way of life. But the word that gets repeated a lot was charm. So he clearly was very charming.
Yes, I think his personality was very good at convincing people, but I don't think he believed the gold was there. But he got so used to the lies he was using to continue his story that I think they just became automatic. I don't think it was hard work for him, like you were saying, Taiwo. He knows how to answer those sort of issues. It's not hard work. And the lifestyle, he's used to that as well. So he lives it. And the gold is always so far in the distance that in a way, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about the gold because he's always going to find a way to put people off and fob them off with some other story. I just think if he hadn't thought of that scam, he'd have been a preacher. He'd have started a church and he'd have been a very
I
preacher and he'd have
agree,
been very,
because I
very
felt in his
successful.
defense, in some ways, he was providing a service which was very much needed. Because
What service
when
was
you talk
that?
about hope, a service of hope, people need hope, and he was providing hope for people. I mean, when he embarked on the African Glade, a down-at-heel former Second World War freighter, he left, what was it, Takoradi Harbour, and there was this entourage of women dressed in white who had also come to bid Blay farewell. And Quansom, his old schoolmaster, was wondering, who are these women in white? And then he found out that they were his clients in quote. Says his former pupil had been helping them with their problems, physical and spiritual, for a fee. So there are always people that, the church is filled with women. Probably more than 75% of the church is women with problems. And most of the time, the pastor is a man and he's there as a representative of God to solve the problems. So, this is what Blay Mensa was doing. He was providing solutions, spiritual and physical, for these women. And then he extended it, he extrapolated it to, solving the world's problems. People need hope. He was providing hope.
Was it really hope to the rest of the world? I think you said at the beginning it was like greedy people who wanted even more money, following him around and these big meetings he would convene at these hotels, and it sounded absurd. But it's almost like this sunk cost fallacy. They really needed to believe it was right because the alternative was they had been idiots. So better to believe. And there's a scene at the end which so I have to say I listened to the book. I didn't read it. I listened to it. But the scene where he's in hospital and his hand appears from under the cover. His hand shoots out from under the cover, takes the money. And
that was hilarious. Yeah,
comes back in. I kid you not. I started laughing so hard, like I had to sit down. I thought it was a brilliant scene. The hand shoots out, grabs the money, and disappears back under the sheet. It's just these people are asking to be robbed, like a fallen. They're begging to be robbed. Easily parted, like. And, he hasn't been promising returns for like a couple of months. For years! Years! It's like...
Not months, decades.
This is why I get confused by the hope thing. Was anything built at all? I feel like even if he gave me a structure, there doesn't have to be paint. I just feel like even if it was like half a wall, that to me is hope. But if there was nothing I don't know how long he can keep saying he's offering hope, because there was no scaffolding, there was not even any fake. I don't even think there was any surveyors go I that's why I don't get the hope thing, because you don't even pay an actor to go and pretend to dig the ground. You can only say hope for the first year or two, but nothing after decades was ever seen. I don't know if you can still keep saying hope.
But you just have to trust him. You just have to trust him.
After
You just have
20
to trust him
years.
this one more time.
I
You have
agree
to
with
trust him
you.
this one more
No.
time. That's the beauty of hope. You don't need a physical manifestation of some material thing. You just need the abstract continuation of, we're just around the corner. We're just about to begin doing what we need to do. If you will only just, the last push, the last 10%, if you would just believe in me and just invest, you get 10% returns. Now, clearly, 10%, come on.
This is why I can't fall for these things, because I need to see results. And there was none at all. Like I said, I would even hire an actors to pretend to start building something. It's not that hard.
But and do you not think that some of it was the allure of the type of lifestyle that he was living? So
Yeah.
he appeared to be very wealthy, right? So do you not think that perhaps the fact that they see him showing up as really wealthy, living in hotels and dressed really smartly, and having all of that wealth around him, do you not think that perhaps convinced people that
Well, the
actually
people that think they're going to
there
get
was
returns,
something
the
in
people
what
that
he was
don't care
saying?
about if he's going to build a hospital, fine. That maybe if you see him in a nice car, you might think you're going to get something back. But for the people in government who you've said you're going to change half of Takoradi and the Western region and that I don't understand, because like I said, like there was no structures put in place. So that's that bit of the hope. I don't understand it at all, because there was nothing. Like, I don't know if I've gotten to a point, but wasn't a Champong asking him, well, why haven't we started on something yet? And then he made up some other. It's too waffly. But for everyone else that was promised returns, actually no, because then it would annoy me that you're living well and I haven't grown. So no, overall no, I'm not convinced at this point. At the beginning, yes, but after a year or two, no.
You're too
But
rational.
Yeah,
Yeah,
He's
but
not
I
waited
think
like
that
20
especially at the
years.
beginning, or a lot of his investors were quite wealthy people themselves,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they probably had lots of other fingers in many pies. They couldn't be chasing him the whole time. Every now and again, they'd think, "What's going on with that thing that we
Yeah.
did?" and chase him again. I'm sure they didn't all believe it in the end either, but they've been in it for so long that they might as well stick, because just in case, I think.
But Katrina, you're paying for flights to go to Geneva. You're paying for flights to go to Jersey. You're paying for flights to go to
That's why,
London,
that's
right? You're
why I
spending
say
money. You've been
the
doing this
majority of them were
for.
wealthy people. Some of them borrowed money, it's true, I'm sure, and to get into it. But a lot of them, they were wealthy people. They were doing their own little scams. And they were used to jetting around. They must have been, because how else could you do it? Can you afford to do that? Even if you put an investment in something that turns out not to be very good, can you go chasing it all round the world? Because I can't. I'd have to write it off. So I think if you can afford to do that, I wonder how
But also
crooked
there's a
some of
thrill element,
them
isn't
were
there?
as well.
So there's the hope that you get a 10% return or 20% return or whatever he was spinning, whatever lie at that time. But at the same time, someone like Rigby especially, which is why in some ways I liked him. What did he say? He said, sign me up. He knew what was going on, but he wanted the thrill of, where's this gravy train? Where are we going to end up? It's going to crash and burn eventually. I'm pretty sure he knew that it would. But while the gravy train is going forward, it's going to be a rush, and he wants that whole experience. The same with Bernstein. Bernstein was a businessman, and what did he say? I wouldn't have traded one day of this spiritual journey. Spiritual journey, really? He invested what? Several $100,000, hoping for a return of several million. This was a businessman. He wasn't a silly man. He was an intelligent businessman, perceptive, and yet he got hooked, as he said. And yet I got hooked, which is what he said. So you're in it for the rush. You're in it for the thrill of the ride.
But there were some people who lost everything as well. like the widow,
There
the
were.
woman at the who had the business, the guy who set up the brewery, like in and amongst the.
But I bet those people, though, I wonder if they were the ones who were chasing him round wherever he was in Austria and all the rest of it. I wonder if they were, because I doubt it. I
No,
doubt
I
it.
think that it was
They
mainly
wouldn't
the
have
But the
business,
afforded
like you
other
said,
side,
the
to
business
produce
people.
if
yeah.
they've lost everything.
But alongside that, I mean, he just must have had a wonderful charisma and charm and the wealth. Everything he was projecting must have just beguiled people into it, mustn't they?
Bearing in mind that the wealth wasn't his. He was always living off other people's wealth to put on this front. So the cigars, the nice suits, the hotel suites, it's all other people's wealth. He's a leech, basically.
He might have been, but more fool them for paying up. There's a bit at the end where after he's passed, and I think it's his daughter's kind of reflecting on the impact it had on the family. And she said what lost them their friends wasn't when the lies were exposed, it was when they lost them when they had no money. So people don't mind the lie as long as there's still a nice house they can come round to and admire. It's just when they had no more money, that's when they fell out of favour. So yeah, but more than that, it was the greed of what they were willing to believe. Like the story that Nkrumah was a dictator and stole money from his country. And it says the beginning, anybody who knew him or would have dug around, he said, strong moral compass, I didn't like, but I believe that, I know that not to be true. But everybody else was willing to go, oh yeah, it must be true. Why, what proof? Oh, well, he was just another country in Africa with a dictator who probably didn't know how, all of those kind of stereotypes and prejudice start to come into play as well. And also eventually when the police get on it in Philadelphia as well, there'd been complaints, but maybe I read this wrong, but it sounded like it was complaints from a certain person or a certain type of person, which is what sprung them into action. Up until that point, they didn't mind.
I think the investors had begun to turn against him, and so there were more and more complaints being made. And I think previously the investors were not willing to give, I guess because they're embarrassed, not willing to give evidence against him. And so when Ellis was arrested and sent to prison, and Ellis had exposed that he was a crook, I think at that point he began to fall out of favor with the investors, and then more decided to actually turn against him.
But that sounds right. Wasn't there also a moment where they had, in trying to collect evidence, they'd gone after a black neighborhood in Philadelphia, and they had such a heavy-handed response that no one wanted to cooperate?
Yeah, the police had, yeah.
Yeah, so even people who had been swindled would prefer to just have been swindled than cooperate with the authorities in Philadelphia. Yeah.
But also, I think a big part of that also was the interview with the US reporter, who, unlike the others, went a bit further and actually exposed him.
Tell me that didn't have a hint of that Prince Andrew interview about
it.
Like somebody who thinks they could just sweet talk their way out of it, and then they come up with somebody who asks tough questions. That's what it. But
was that the 90 minutes interview?
Yeah. That one with the guy where he's being cocky. Like his downfall is clearly coming.
I don't think that he ever came, though. I don't really think that his downfall ever came. I don't think karma ever came to bite him in the back.
Not in a way that he felt like he'd sufficiently lost, maybe. Until he died, he had his wealth, right? Or he had riches. Yeah, maybe all right. But there have been other stories of fraudster. Did anybody hear about that lady who went to New York and was conning people? I can't remember what her name was.
But right?
Inventing Anna. That was it. And I'm thinking, and if they're going to give her the money, I'm supposed to feel bad for her victims. I couldn't rock up to the bank and get them to write me a loan for £1 million. If they're willing to write it for you, take the money.
Honestly, maybe you could. Sometimes it's one of those things, you see those memes. I sit here and think I'm just living an honorable life when there's people out there doing illegal things and making money and not getting caught. And I'm struggling. We haven't tried. We haven't actually tried. This is the thing. You can rent clothes. I could rent very expensive clothes and look posh for the day and go and do some swindling and see how I get on. And then go from there. I'm not going to, because I'm an honourable person. I'm just saying there's nothing stopping any of us. That's all.
I did think about rocking up to a hotel and asking for the most expensive suite, suite, and seeing whether
But
they'll
your hair,
actually.
your hair.
So I can wear a wig, or I can say that I'm a musician.
Yes, but what are you going to do when you check out? That's the plan. What's your plan?
I haven't thought that far yet.
Yeah, but he charged it to the Ghanaian embassy. You can charge it to the Ugandan embassy here or something like that. They said I can come. I'm here on part of the cultural bit. Like there's something you can just do that, flee, and then don't go back there again.
The problem with nowadays is you have all this CCTV surveillance. I possibly would not get away with it.
Yeah.
But actually, having said that, I was listening to a documentary where there was this guy that was doing exactly that. He ended up in prison. He would basically check in at a hotel and he would swindle the hotel, not pay. And he was living in top hotels around London. He eventually got caught, got sent to prison, and then he came back and then he was doing the same thing again.
How long did he get though?
6 months.
Is that it?
And in fact, when he came back, he didn't just go into swindling hotels. He went into cybercrime. So,
yeah.
Look at it from the guy's point of view, whether he was in prison or in a hotel, he wasn't paying for room and board, no matter what.
Exactly.
What a smart man.
He didn't have to pay for a mortgage.
But it was taking its toll because by the end, remember, it was catching up with him in terms of the mental stress it was causing him to juggle all these balls.
Did it cause him any mental stress? I thought he's down for, at least he died because he was of his unhealthy lifestyle rather than the stress of living the lie that he was living.
Well, I thought it was the rich food that he was,
Exactly,
rich,
exactly.
food.
Cigars, the alcohol. No stress. There was no stress. He was that man was not stressed.
He looked unhealthy. Yeah, didn't look
stressed by his wife when she was chasing him around.
But I don't think he was stressed. I think it was more the unhealthy lifestyle of having rich food and cigars and alcohol and just basically sitting around, really.
Don't forget the women as well.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah.
Gladys, what did you guys think of Gladys?
I've only seen bits of Gladys, like a few. There's always little snippets they bring in. The last bit I read was when she met that model at a party and brought her around for tea and stuff. But even at this point, I don't even care for Gladys because she's enjoying the lifestyle too. Otherwise, she would have left. So, I at the beginning I felt like I felt like he kind of kidnapped this woman because she wasn't even interested in him, and so I felt a bit bad. But now I'm just like, you're enjoying this lifestyle, so you do you. That's where I'm at this point. I don't feel for her anymore.
I felt she focused her energies in the wrong place. She focused her energies in terms of keeping him in check in terms of his many affairs. But maybe she should have just forgotten about that and focused her energies on siphoning off as much of the money as she could.
I thought she said she wanted to be a fashion designer. Did she not start any side business for her? Oh, please. Then she's not smart. She's not smart. I would have started siphoning off some of the money, got as much as I could, and then gone. She's not smart at all. It's not, you marry well, you have to do the marriage well. She didn't do the marriage well. So.
Wow. Annette has gone from being honourable to doing the marriage well.
Yeah, but she's right. She should have put something aside. She should have put a little bit aside. She knew who she was married to.
That is the honourable thing to do, actually.
Yes, for the kids.
Annette, you're very Ghanaian in terms of the idea of honour and how malleable honour, the concept of honour is, how flexible it is.
You said there's different types of generosity. There are different types of honour. So, yeah.
Okay, that's true. Okay, I have to accept that's true.
But she was completely reliant on him, right? But
she was also getting envelopes, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was, but he backed her for everything. And then when he was gone, so it's a very practical challenge as well. Like these women who marry wealth, and then the wealth disappears, and they're left with nothing, because at no point did it occur to them that they'd have to look after themselves at some point.
Yeah, but I got the feeling that with Gladys, it did occur to her. That's why she wanted to set up that fashion business. As to why she didn't, and she focused. She knew he was a philanderer, right? And he was never going to change. So I don't know why she wasted all her energy chasing him and these other women. My favorite one was, I think, were they in the Cayman Island? Was it the Cayman Island? Where she phoned up the hotel where he was staying, asked for Kathleen, and then flew all the way. And then when she got there, went to the room and found out it was a different Kathleen. And she was like, really feeling bad about it. And then went to knock on her husband's suite, and there was Kathleen.
But if that's like the early years of your marriage, and you still, maybe the truth hadn't sunk in for her at that point.
But that was in the early years, though. This was like this was towards the end. She was still running after him. This is when she moved to London and was living in London.
But didn't she then go and who went to John Lewis and bought the expensive? That was her.
The gold bed.
Yeah, that was her eventually.
No,
that was someone else.
That wasn't her. That was Edusei's wife or something. He was also a philanderer, so that's okay. It was one of the politicians' wife.
I can't, there's part of her who still believed in the relationship, so that must have been a rude awakening for her. But I thought she did set up her own fashion, she had a shop, and in the end, it folded.
She set up a small little shop after he died, but it wasn't anything big. I think it was just a small little shop near where they lived, and it didn't do very well. So eventually she left the country, not living the kind of lifestyle that she had become accustomed to. But I'm with Annette. If I were her, I would have said, you keep your women, just keep sending me the money. And then once I'd got enough, I'm out. And he was only really with her for the respectability, to say he's had a wife.
It may well be the same reason that she was with him, for the respectability, isn't it? She's a married woman, a mother of however many children, etc., etc.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I think that chasing off his mistresses it's just like what she thought she should do as a respectable wife. She's got this husband, that's her way of supporting the marriage. It's not like a love thing. It's just being respectable, and of course money as well. She enjoyed that. But I think she'd have found it difficult to leave him because there's stigma attached to that, isn't there? And we're looking back a few years. I'm not sure exactly, but I think there would have been a lot of stigma on her if she walked out on it. It's all very well he's seeing other women, but that's okay, isn't it? That's what husbands do.
Not anymore. Women now walk out.
Yes, all over the world, but they didn't used to the same extent, did they?
That is very true. Very true.
At the same time, though, whether she stayed or whether she left, I guess in some ways that's a secondary issue. The main issue is, did she make provision for her future financially? And she didn't. So her efforts, her energies were directed down the wrong avenue, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Coming to the political situation in Ghana, first of all, I must say that the one thing I really liked about the book is the political focus. And I felt like I learned a lot about Ghanaian politics. I didn't know that Ghana had so many coups. So this for me was a huge learning curve into Ghanaian politics. And I liked the way she presented that in the context of the story and how he interacted with the politicians and how the political situation at the time affected how politicians interacted with him. And I just really wanted to know what you guys thought about the political situation at the time. And do you think the fact that Ghana was so unstable made the con easier?
Yeah, I thought so. So I agree, that's what I loved most about this book. I've learned a huge amount. And we were saying about investigative journalism, I just balls that word up. But from cover to cover, this book, the research that she must have had to do to kind of piece together this story, I just think is brilliant. But I loved learning about that era of history. I think I sort of knew about it, but not that level of detail. I knew there had been a number of coups. I remember reading somewhere like I think it's like the 92 election was badged as like the return to open, fair like elections. I'd heard about how awful like the 80s were in particular, and I think she broke that down very well. And I thought the point she was making it was this wouldn't have been possible without in a stable political situation. Like part of him being able to get away with it for as long as he did was because there was instability, and he was able to play that to his advantage. To me, those bits, first with the lead up to independence, then post-independence, and then what happens afterwards, to me those were some of the most insightful bits of the book.
And also her take on J.J. Rawlings, not just his first coming, but his second coming. I was fascinated about how she viewed him from the research that she did. Annette, we're thinking, what would what would his view have been about J.J. Rawlings? Would he have been pro or anti?
We've had this conversation a bit, and from what I remember, he thinks he had a lot of potential, and he just didn't fulfill it. I don't know if that's because he didn't think he had enough time or he didn't, but he thinks that Rawlings had potential. He just didn't fulfill it. And I think maybe he might have just wanted him to be there longer or done things differently, but he's not anti Rawlings. I think he wanted him to do things a bit more different.
Was your dad in Ghana at the time that Rawlings was in power throughout?
I think my dad might have been in Nigeria, but I have to check there because my parents were in Nigeria for a long time. My brother was even born there. So yeah, for a bit, and then they came here. Like most Ghanaians came here in the 80s, around when everything was going on.
Was that the Ghana must go era?
Yeah, that's what I believe, Nigeria. Yeah.
Bits I found interesting is that the Brits kind of sent in a spy to try to destabilise legitimate Ghanaian efforts to get gold back because they knew they had taken it. So it was all this thing going on, thinking about that question you posed. I don't think many people come out of this looking good. So it's hard then just to put everything on this one guy.
The British didn't exactly cover themselves in glory. And also where the US not in Ghana and other places in Africa trying to overthrow the governments. I can't say the word. Trying to overthrow the governments anyway because they thought they were leaning more towards communism. So it wasn't exactly in their interest to do something about Blameza at the time.
You know, like when he was in prison, one of the times he was in prison, but you know, when he got everybody's hair cut and he got a football team going and everything for them. I mean, those people, they wouldn't care how he got his money. If they found out or if they got the sense that maybe he'd swindled somebody else to get it, but then he'd spent it on them, you know, he'd have been a hero, wouldn't he? It wouldn't have mattered. A bit like this idea that people didn't really care until they'd run out of money, and that's when they were ostracized. And I think when his football team thing, where he used to turn up making an entry like a celebrity, which he was in a way, I mean, people quite like that sort of thing, don't they? And us reading the book, for all that we might disapprove in some ways and think it's you know, there were some people who really did get hurt and it's a shame, but you sort of admire him as well, don't you, that he could just have the chutzpah in a way to carry all this through, to get away with it. You have a secret admiration for him, I think.
What I admired was that skill of being able to convince so many people. And these are clever people. These are businessmen. These are people who politicians. These are people who made money. These are people who were in high places. The fact that he could convince all of these people, that was the one quality about him that I actually really like. Wow, how does he do that? It's a shame that he didn't use it for good.
Because that kind of greed is good mantra, isn't it? Greed is good, greed is good. So, of course, you know, it's quite easy to convince people that are already leaning towards being greedy, looking for the best way they can get the best return possible by any means. But yes, he did have a lot of persuasive charisma. So, and he was a great showman, wasn't he?
So what do you guys think about, do you think she felt she was on any side? Or was it morally ambiguous? And then also, do you feel that she presented everything, or do you feel like there were bits missing and there were unanswered questions?
I read it as I thought she was calling out the hypocrisy and of everyone, of all the characters. I didn't read it as if she was coming down on one side or another. I felt she called out the politicians in charge. She documented our man. She followed his path of who he was ripping off when he got caught. I'm glad somebody remembered that thing about paying for the haircuts as well. I think that's when I fell in love with him. What a move. Pay for haircuts for everybody in prison. No one's going to, they're all going to look after you after that point, aren't they?
Yeah, I didn't read biased in any way. I think it just read like she was, I don't know what the facts are. It read like she was just stating what happened, and it read well researched as well. So yeah, no, everyone was who needs to be called out. I'm not all the way through, but so far everyone that needs to be called out has been called out.
I felt that she has the right to an opinion. I mean, she's done the research. She doesn't have to have been there to land on one side or the other, or no side at all, as most authors that are writing non-fiction wouldn't necessarily have been there. They're just reporting the facts as they see them on the basis of the research that they've done. I mean, when Kay was talking about when she fell in love with the trickster, I think for me it was when he's talking about his chauffeur would open the door and he would step out into the snow draped in heavy ochre kente cloth and just stand there like he had all the time in the world, the quiet center of a flurry of activity. The traffic would halt. Passers-by would stop dead in the middle of the pavement and gawk. For years afterwards, people would talk about the African prince who came to town. And I thought that in itself, that was enough for me to just think, this guy, he knew how to play a role. It's like he's in his own movie. Like, before even coming to America, he was just like the African prince. And he played the part to a T. So I thought that, yes, he deserved everything that he got because he knew how to spin a good story that people would willingly give him their money. Even when they have doubts about the story that he's spinning, they would still give him their money.
The research is impressive, I think, that she's put into it. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed all the sort of background information. To me, it read very sort of even-handed. She didn't seem to give a particular opinion. She didn't make him sound into a demon for, the way he'd scammed everybody. She just told you about him, I think.
Maybe I'm the only one that read it slightly differently then, because I thought she was quite scathing about the politicians in Ghana at the time. And I also felt that she was pro Nkrumah and very much anti J.J. Rowling's.
Yeah, I haven't got to the rulings bit yet, but I do think I could read that she was pro Nkrumah because some of the stuff my dad has told me, I was like, oh, but he's not reading what, and I know that other stuff is true, and there were some bits omitted. So yeah,
So things like bad things that he did.
So he was essentially like a dictator. But I don't feel like she really described him in that way. Yeah. So, and he could have quite a mean streak, so I've been told. So I think there were some things about his character. He was a good moral compass, but some things about his character, and then I guess the way he actually governed was like a dictatorship, and that wasn't, that she didn't frame it in that way.
That didn't come through in the book, definitely.
I mean, Jackie, I agree with you in terms of the politicians. She does give a view. I thought we were talking about Blair Mises, her view of him. But going back to Rawlings, I spoke to my friend about him afterwards. And okay, I don't think he'd have been much in Ghana at that time. But he still sees that there were positive sides to Rawlings, and he was inclined, to put the blame on all the, soldiers who were out of control type of thing for some of that.
So it's interesting you've heard that view. The view I've heard is the one that perhaps more aligns with where this book then is going, is that he was responsible for a lot of bloodshed in the 80s, but because then he gets elected.
I don't think the bloodshed's being denied, but just that despite that there were good things that came out of the time.
So I wonder if it could be that you're more likely to criticise the bloodshed if you were closer to that than you were to the good stuff, I suppose. But yeah. So yeah, I detected that, but I thought when I would say she called out everyone, I thought she was scathing of everyone, all the politicians included in that. Am I the only one who felt that Nkrumah came across as very naive?
No, I agree with that. I felt, unfortunately so, he seemed to be blind to the fact that, unlike him, most men have feet of clay.
Say that one again. Most men have feet of clay.
Yeah, unlike
I've
him.
never heard that one before. Can you explain that one?
Well, it's just the whole idea of fallibility, isn't it? Human fallibility.
Okay.
I think with Nkrumah, as Jackie is always talking about the benevolent dictator, he probably would have gotten things done.
Would he have, with all the political and external interference? And the fact that he was left with absolutely nothing.
A politician in this country who was of Ghanaian descent, and he made I don't know how true this is, I didn't fact check it, but he said that when Ghana and Singapore got independence around the same time, Ghana was richer than Singapore. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true.
That's like I'd always heard. And then by the time you get to when this was said was like the 2010s, like obviously Singapore is like light years ahead in terms of economic development and what so have you. So
my dad also compares Malaysia as well. It's like the same, like there's so many, Malaysia and Singapore, both countries is like around the same time or in the same situation, and now look where they are now. I don't know if Nkrumah would have got things done, so I don't feel like he would have survived. I think something would have happened to him. Like I think he would have been assassinated, so I don't actually think he would have seen it out.
But then you just like Singapore, didn't they have like a benevolent dictator? They had one person.
Did they have US and British and Western interference?
Good
to the
point.
same level as African countries?
I don't know, because I confess I don't know much about like East Asian history, but it wouldn't surprise me that it was a different level, as in less than, because of what was going on at the time on the continent and this whole communism, or trying to prevent communist leaders being installed.
Because the US went into Vietnam and they interfered with Vietnam because of their communist leanings. So I would have assumed that had Singapore and Malaysia gone the same way, we probably had some form of US interference, or at least Western interference. But anyway, I don't know the history. I'm just guessing.
Things I think I sort of knew but really understood from this book is the lack of infrastructure that was left behind. You know, this narrative that, you know, Brits invested in their colonies and they left them behind in a good state. You left it with a couple of train tracks all going to the coast so you could then ship out whatever resources you collected. You know, that's not infrastructure to underpin a vibrant economy.
On that depressing note, I have just one more question.
Go for it.
What's the most ridiculous thing that you've ever been convinced to buy, or if not to buy, then conned into doing or parting with your money for?
I want to reply to an April Fool's email.
Saying what was he saying?
It was, I thought it was like a shadowing opportunity or something, because that's how it was framed. But when I read it the second time, I realised it was April. There were certain words in there. I'd read it quickly and I thought I had the gist of it. And then I replied, and then I got the reply back going, "It's April Fool's." And I felt like such an... And I thought, but I felt so silly because I just quickly like glanced over it. Everything about it screamed, "This is right." But it's till I just skimmed over it. I didn't read it. So it's my own fault. Like, I didn't read it.
Were you shadowing? Was it to shadow someone really important?
I can't remember. Was it shadowing somebody or some... And that's another thing I thought was like particularly shady about it as well, because it wasn't outrageous what it was. But that whole point somebody said earlier about being close enough to the truth, that's what I fell for.
I'll say mine off this when we're done, because I don't want to relive it for everyone to hear. I'll just tell you after. And it's subjective. I personally think I've been scammed, but I'll explain off air.
I'm sort of famously tight-fisted, so I'm not easily scammed. But I did have something a bit like what Taiwo was saying. It was a guest house in Tanzania, which would normally be about, like, let's say 10,000 for the night, just a little place. And it was raining outside, and I just got off this bus. It was a small place, and so I walked to this one that I could see, probably the only one there. And I thought the bloke said that the room was 6,000, which I thought was a bit cheap, but okay, fine, it's a small place. And it was only once I got my stuff inside, and you're sort of, it becomes difficult to get out, and it's getting dark outside, and it's raining, when it suddenly became 60,000. I was furious, but I paid it in the end.
I had a similar experience in Tanzania as well. So we got to the airport, negotiated hard for a taxi to take us to the hotel. And then when we got to the hotel, we negotiated in the local currency. When we got to the hotel, the man now started asking for the amount in dollars. I'm like, no, no, it's not going to happen. So we ended up in a huge argument. He's threatening to call the police. I'm like, fine, go ahead, call the police. We are not paying. And at this point, my friends are like, you know what, we should just pay him and let him go. I'm like, no, we're not doing it. We are not doing it. Just because he's seen that we've come from abroad, he thinks he can say this and get away with it. And I refused to pay. Eventually, he went. We paid him in local currency and he went. But I think when you go abroad, people, when they see that you're not local, they really do try and con you and take advantage.
They do, but in Tanzania, in most of the small places, people do not do that to you. They might increase a little bit. I'm not saying they won't bump it up a little bit, but not to a ridiculous level that you'll particularly notice, which is why I was so upset, really, because I travelled around quite a lot in small places, and I didn't get that sort of thing happening to me on the whole at all.
I think in towns they go big.
This wasn't a town. This was a roadside guest house with, where you've got 10 buildings. It wasn't anything big at all, which is why I thought, 6,000, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's the only thing I can think of. Probably when we've finished, I'll remember something where I've been properly scammed.
This was back in the 80s in Lagos. There's a part in Lagos that used to be called Quayside, where if you're going to do your shopping, like upmarket, you go. But there's an area in Quayside that, you can get all this bend down secondhand stuff.
It's called bend down?
Bend down, because you have to bend down to... You have to bend down to assess the wares, basically. So my brother and I, we go there. We're university students, as they say. So we go there. We're very excited because we saved our monthly stipend. We want to buy some, as they used to call them, spoodies, clothes. But we want to get something that's very fashionable. So we're quite prepared to buy secondhand, but as long as the quality is good. So we go to this guy's. He didn't even have a store. It's just like when they have a cloth on the ground and four corners, and they have the string so that they can just yank it up, put it over their shoulder and run if they need to. So anyway, he's got all these shirts. So we're looking at some of these shirts. Then my brother notices that the shirts are heavily starched. So he's thinking, no, it's not gonna work, because once you wear it and then you wash it and the starch all comes out, it's going to show how badly the second-hand condition is. So we want to back away, but the guy starts speaking to his companion in Igbo and menacing us, and we knew that we were being threatened to the extent where he's like, no, you have to buy it, you've touched my shirts, you've touched my goods, you have to buy it. And this guy was big, so we're like, no, we've only just touched you, we're just looking at it, we're not gonna. But the way he was talking and the way he was talking to his friend, it was quite threatening. And we knew that we were going to have to buy it. So we kind of, with bad grace, we paid for it, bought it, and walked away. And we knew that we had been, as they would say, chanced. We'd been chanced. Yeah. Traumatic experience of a bend down purchase.
You guys are just bringing back all kinds of experience I had when I was living in Kenya and traveling. I feel like that was my fear of just always being ripped off, and I'm sure it happened more than I care to admit. And sometimes I just negotiated. Sometimes I walked away. Sometimes I just thought, whatever, okay. If it's not too outrageous and I can cover it, whatever. Because they used to, like, in Nairobi, is it Toy Market? And they, huge market, all secondhand goods, but like from all over. So you can get some really good things if you go down there and have a look. And I remember going down there once and I was looking for a particular shirt and it was there. And I made the cardinal sin of showing that I wanted it. And then all of a sudden, and then like I remember walking away thinking, I know I paid way too much for that. I feel like such an idiot.
Yeah, I think if you're a foreigner, they definitely spot you from a mile away, and by the time you get to their store, they've already increased the price like threefold. But hey, here we go. So, Blame Ezra and the man that swindled the world. How would you rate it out of 5, and why? And would you recommend it?
I'm still going high. I'm still going to go with 4. Pardon?
What did it get during the discussion?
Well, wasn't it? Everyone was 4, and I was 4.5.
Yeah, I think you and Isaac were quite high.
Yeah, but everyone else was 4.
Yeah,
which is still not bad, really.
Which is good.
Yeah, but I think she tells a really good story. Bearing in mind that it's non-fiction, so the amount of research that she's done and the threads that she's weaving in order to make the story engaging, to really bring out his character and who he was and how he died. I think she did that really well. So I really did enjoy it, reading it. And as Katrina said, his chutzpah, the boldness of him, he's just amazing. And the greed, the human greed, the way that he just understood human psychology. I found it in some ways baffling, but at the same time, just demoralizing. The greed. Just naked greed. I was sad for the guy that lost his brewery because he seemed to be a socially responsible employer, doing a lot for the, what was it, 1,000 bungalows or something that his workers had negotiated near the factory, and decent wages, and I think schools or something like that, education for the workers' children. He was doing a lot, but then when he believed in Lemenza now, he lost everything. So I was sad about that. But it was, a fascinating story of human nature.
I think I'll stick to 4. It's very good. It's well researched. It's engaging when you read it. It's a good story. But I wouldn't give it 4.5. I think I wouldn't go higher because I don't think I'll go back and read it all again. But I enjoyed it. It was well worth reading. I would recommend it to anybody.
I would say I maybe thought 4.5. Maybe just a bit lower. I'm going to be awkward and say like 4.25. No, do you know what? 4.5. I didn't read it. I listened to it. It was really enjoyable. One of the reasons I wanted to listen is because I wanted to hear somebody else's pronunciations of many of the names. I thought it was well researched. I thought it was very funny, darkly humorous in some places. And that balance of things that I like to read. And I just found the history of Ghana, the up to independence, post-independence, and the impact of that. I found that fascinating. That's what I really enjoyed learning about, against the backdrop of our man who, as my grandmother always says, players know who to play. So 4.5.
I am enjoying it. There's a lot of, I think I've given up trying to remember the names at this point. There's a lot of characters, so I am getting a bit lost within that. But I'm just enjoying learning about the political history a lot more in detail. Yeah, I wasn't too familiar with all the names. And it is funny. There's a dark humor to it, and I do find him quite fascinating. I still think there's something not right. You've all said he's fine, but I still think something is not right with him. But I find him fascinating. You said he wasn't stressed, Jackie. I don't know how you can't find this life stressful. I don't know. There's something, like, it's so bad that there's something admirable about him in a way. I don't know what it is. For who he is, I just find him a really interesting person. And she's done so much research. And from where I am, she's written it out well. It's not too dense, whereas some things can be. So yeah, I think I could say 4.5, but I'm not there yet. I'm a 4, but I could see myself saying 4.5 at the end.
Yeah, I think I agree with everybody. It's a good book. I learned a lot. I also find it really surprisingly very easy to read. I normally textbooks and non-fiction is quite dense and hard to get into, but I got into this pretty much straight away, and it kept me engaged all the way through. I agree with the amount of research that he's done. She did a lot of research, and she presented the case, and I'm just shocked that I'd never heard of this guy, given what he achieved, especially for a black man. So yeah, he really did surprise me that I'd never heard of him. And I hear, Annette, that every 10 years someone like this crops up in Ghana, but not to the same level of fame. There's always some kind of con man.
How to take that?
Conning people.
Are they trying to like emulate him or what? Is it?
Yeah, I was speaking to because when I finished reading this, I pretty much asked all my Ghanaian friends whether they've heard of him and what they thought, if they had. And yeah, one of them said basically everybody knows about him, and every 10 years someone like him crops up trying to do something similar, but they just haven't got to the same level of notoriety as Blame Eza.
I don't think now it would be possible.
But yeah, it was a good read.
Cryptocurrency, it's always possible.
Is it?
Yeah.
With how is it possible with
Possible.
cryptocurrency?
I mean, what happened with Friedman? Is it Friedman Banks or whatever his name is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or but still, that woman that convinced people to invest in her blood company that was recently sentenced. So you are right, Taiwo. It does happen. Yeah.
Was anybody else? As I was listening to this, I thought this would make a brilliant 3-part or 4-part series on Netflix. I would love some. I just think it would be brilliant because it's like a historical piece. You get the political intrigue as well. You can have the backstory as in Nkrumah, and then you follow our man as he grows. It's.
Okay, you're talking yourself into making a documentary.
Somebody should. Like everybody says, I agree that it wouldn't happen now because he's totally of his time and place.
But it wouldn't happen like that. But yeah. I think, like Taiwo was saying, that guy, is that the young guy who, what is the name of that Bitcoin person?
Sam Friedman Banks.
People like that, they find their way, don't they? They become politicians as well. We know a few politicians who con us, don't we?
Anyhow, I think we'll stop there so we can hear Annette's story about being conned.
Come on.
Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you join us again next time. Till then, goodbye.